You asked us to test out the new Z Tamron 70-300 against the Nikon F-mount 70-300, which is what we're doing today.
Yeah, we have nothing else to do.
We thought we'd pit them against each other to see how they perform in terms of sharpness, autofocus performance, and just overall usability. So
Let's do this.
Let's go.
Yay.
Somewhere over there in the sun.
All right. Yeah, I'm a constant Nolan.
Okay.
Probably Konstantin Tarkovsky, more like.
Yeah.
All arty-farty.
The
Wow, look
Great
at that.
Westminster Art House channel. Look at that, isn't that cool?
Hello and welcome to the Culture Channel with Connor and Becky.
It's all like, welcome to English history.
Yeah. We're gonna sit next to the fireplace and try to remember things.
These little crows. Okay, I was taking a shot of a crow,
Yeah.
and I think
How did it go?
it went okay.
Oh, wonderful.
The AF-S 70-300, which is the predecessor to this one, is a lens that I actually had on my D200 and D300 for a number of years, and I used it for kind of walkabout, general purpose stuff. The AFP 70-300 optically is very similar. The only difference is it has an electromagnetic diaphragm and a pulse motor in the autofocus system, which means it's slightly better for video work, but means it also won't be compatible with much older DSLR cameras. Now, in my Becky Attenborough true style, I'm going to be taking some pictures of the fungi that I have found over here. Fungi is some of the most underappreciated species of organism on the planet, and over 90% of them are unidentified.
You know that they're actually radiation fungi as well. They can grow in radiation. They use radiation as well. I read it yesterday on Reddit, and Reddit is always right.
That is so cool.
That's right.
Lenses like this don't usually have a very close focusing distance. This one is about 1 meter. So for me, I want to be as close as possible to the subject.
There's no use to you. Yeah, it's a deal breaker for you.
So my question is then, is the closest focusing distance the same when you zoom in? Does that mean you can be 1 meter away, but that you can zoom all the way in? And the answer is, basically, you can. Okay, I'm just doing a couple of comparison shots. I chose the fungi because it's easy. I know what I shot.
Yeah, it's the theme.
So because this has a variable close focus, so the Nikon is 70-300 all the way through 1.2 meters. This is 80 centimeters at the 70 end and 1.5 meters at the 300 end, which means I can't do that same thing where I just stay planted where I am and zoom in. I have to kind of fiddle with the focal length. It's not a major problem, it's just when you've gone from one to the other, you have to remember.
All right, so let's talk about portraiture with this lens. And while they are variable aperture and they're not going to give you 2.8 or 1.8, what's interesting about them is obviously they will compress the background, so it will become blurry. Now, we took 3 shots at 70, 150 and 300 mm focal distances. And on the first 2 focal distances, there's pretty much not much difference between the 2 lenses. Tamron has a slight edge in terms of sharpness, wide open. However, the 70-300 f-mount goes to 5.6, while 70-300 Z Tamron starts at 6.3. So technically, that should give you slightly more shallow depth of field at those distances. Now, at 300 mm focal distance, Nikon is significantly sharper than the Tamron lens. So if you do shoot a lot of longer focal distances, actually, the Nikon wide open at 300 mm is sharper than Tamron wide open at 300 mm. Again, stop down, there's no difference between the two, but keep that in mind. And here I thought you're not going to see any flowers today.
You were wrong.
Becky always finds flowers.
If you want to find flowers, stick with me.
You got a radar.
I do. Cyclamen. Just in case you were interested.
Yeah, whatever they call it. Yeah.
Fleur.
Flowers, yeah. All right, let's be honest. This is not a wildlife setup, if you see what I mean. So it's more of a travel setup. And the good thing about this is it lets you pick out a certain little details from a building like this. So obviously you can get your 24-70 for wide shots of the buildings, etc., etc. Now, if you start to look closely, there's a little dragon over there. There's a little bell. There's a little chimney as well. So this lens will get you there 24-70 once. And it gets you a little bit further than 24-100 lens. So as a setup with 24-70, I think it's a fantastic choice.
Con the bird whisperer.
Come to Papa. Now he's giving me a look.
Yeah, they do though.
Like, what do you want?
They pose. They pose quite beautifully for the camera.
I'm gonna keep coming closer and closer, see if I can get away with it. How far?
Before he thinks, no thank you, you've had enough.
I was like, you can't use my pictures. I haven't signed any model release. Yeah, open the big. Good, good, good. All right. Tell me about those focus backs.
So we put both through their paces. We did video and stills. Now, the F-mount lens is actually a tad bit slower, both in video and on stills when you go from the closest focusing distance to infinity. And we did a few tests like that, both while we were shooting, but also just kind of bench tests, if you like. The Tamron lens is a tiny bit faster, and we are talking sort of fractions of a second here. This one maybe takes 2/3 of a second to go from close focus to infinity, while this one takes maybe half a second. But still, it will be noticeable in certain situations. I would not personally use either of these lenses for birds in flight, but for day-to-day stuff, you can certainly get away with it. We think the reason for the Z Tamron lens being a bit faster, and again, it is negligible, is mainly because it's a native lens. The 70-300 was designed for F-mount. It obviously has to communicate via the FTZ adapter, so that's probably why you get that slight slowness. But it is quite small. It's not like one is much, much faster than the other.
All right, conclusion time.
Yeah. If you've already got an F-mount 70-300, either the AF-S or the AF-P, then good, keep it. Put it on your FTZ, use it. Maybe wait for Nikon to bring out a 70-200 f4 native Z lens. 70-180 is what they're doing, isn't it?
I'm animating what you're saying right now.
Okay.
So I think the difference between Tamron and AF-P version of Nikon lens is very minimal, while AF-S is slightly further behind. But in real life, I think the difference is very small. Now, if you need 70-300 lens right now and you don't have any, then get a Tamron one. It's a native glass. It was designed with Nikon, and therefore you get the best optical performance as well as autofocus speed.
So if you're looking for something to complement your 24-70 or 28-75, let's say, and you are looking for a sort of travel, city crawler lens, visiting beautiful locations like this where you want to zoom in on certain details, then 70 to 300 is the focal length that you really ought to go for. It's a nice lightweight lens. Honestly, the weight difference between these two is quite small, but the FTZ does add a bit of extra weight. So if you want the lighter option, then it's going to be the Tamron.
Yeah, and as Becky said, none of those lenses are professional sport and wildlife lenses. But if you have an occasional sport event or you go somewhere with lots of birds around, it will do the job, but don't expect it to perform as well as for 4,000 pound lens.
That's right. Now, as a final point, the Nikon lens has VR on it, whereas the Tamron doesn't. So if you're using a DX camera, which these lenses pair up great with, you will have image stabilization on this lens. Whereas with the Tamron, there's no image stabilization. So you really are relying on any IBIS in the body if you've got one. If it's a DX body, you've got no VR, IBIS, nothing. So
exactly.
Nikon's a good choice.
But full frame Nikon Z bodies all have built-in vibration reduction on the sensor, so you should be fine with the Tamron lens on full frame Z body.
And there you have it, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Please give us a like, a subscribe, and we'll see you very soon.
Bye.